Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Got a lot to go over today and a lot more still in the backlog. Let's keep on trucking. Quick shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park, Shay Meehan, and Nathan Stankowski, as well as all our other patrons. You keep us all informed and engaged. If any of you out there want to join these advocates of humanity first and independent journalism, head on over to patreon.com/YangDaily. It would only take a couple of bucks a month from each listener to keep this podcast and community going and growing into the future. Now on to the news. Quick note, our most recent patron Charles was kind enough to compliment my explanation of the GameStop incident, and I want to share a couple of clarifications that I gave to him in response. I simplified the actual process of short selling in order to elucidate the concept. The borrowing of shares is not actually a direct exchange with the owner, nor is the compensation. It's mostly run through brokerages and abstracted. Often the owners don't even know that their shares are being lent out. This abstraction leads to the questionable legality and volatility of the event, as there were more shares being shorted than actually existed, which should obviously not be possible. Shorting more than 100% of the shares, which is known as naked shorting, was supposed to be made illegal after the 2008 recession, but loopholes. So this is what I refer to when I say the degree of shorting was illegal, even though the actions of the short sellers themselves may have technically been legal. As for the stocks, they crashed hard when the brokerages banned buying and rebounded most of the way back up the day after when limited buying was again permitted. As of today, they look to be leveling off, though the Koss Corporation still experienced a 45% shift on the day. Retail attention appears to be splitting off into silver and crypto markets. Clarification over. The CDC has issued a mask mandate to all public travelers and conductors in the U.S. It makes refusal to wear a mask a violation of federal law enforced by the Transportation Security Administration and other federal, state, and local authorities. The order applies to planes, trains, and automobiles. No, seriously. Also subways, boats, stations, seaports, and rideshare. In other words, all public transportation. The order does not apply to children 2 or younger, commercial trucks, or military transport. Travelers may briefly remove masks while eating or drinking. The CDC requires that masks fit the face snugly without gaps, be at least 2 layers thick, and not have exhalation valves or vents. Face shields and bandanas are insufficient. Airlines have required masks already, banning more than 2,000 passengers for refusing to wear one so far. Flight attendant unions say a federal rule will make it easier for crews to enforce. They also confirmed Biden's extension on the federal eviction moratorium through the end of March. Biden has been engaging with both Republican and Democratic envoys in efforts to gain bipartisan support for his relief bill. His administration has said that Biden does not intend to reduce the size of the package, as many Republicans are requesting, but he wants to listen to their concerns to try and foster a working relationship and win them over to his perspective. He's also stressing urgency, however, and the Democratic Congress is currently preparing to utilize the budget reconciliation process, which would require only 51 votes in the Senate, rather than the 60 that any non-budget item would due to the filibuster. Biden may need 1 or more Republican votes if Democrats like Joe Manchin vote against. Reconciliation can essentially be used only once per year and has limits on long-term effects to the deficit, among other things. It's unclear whether certain items such as the federal minimum wage would apply to the reconciliation process. New York City continues to bungle its vaccine distribution. The city apparently instructed sites to limit the number of vaccinations and prevented them from using any excess supply in a ridiculously mismanaged attempt by the bureaucracy to avoid shortages. It's had Yang raving online. As if the pandemic and vaccine distribution haven't caused enough problems, anti-vaxxers are now protesting and disrupting vaccination sites in certain parts of the country. They blocked off a site at Dodger Stadium for an hour, with cars lined up waiting to be vaccinated. They are still calling COVID, which has now killed more than 400,000 Americans, a hoax. Makes you wonder what they think has raised the excess mortality rates by that much between 2019 and 2020. Doesn't matter, it'll be fake news if they can't think of anything better. Goes without saying that they are not wearing masks or distancing. These are agents of death, whether they know it or not. Worth noting that these objectively deluded individuals have such crossover with Trump supporters that they felt the need to warn attendees from wearing MAGA attire, as they want to infect non-Trumpers with their misinformation as well. Once you fall into one conspiracy culture, you fall into others. Just a week out from the start of Trump's impeachment trial, a chunk of his legal team's leadership have bailed. I'll leave you to the article in the description if you want the details on that. Earlier, 45 Republican senators attempted to throw out the impeachment trial, so that tells you both where their loyalties lie and what the chances are of impeachment succeeding. It is still, I'm afraid, the party of Trump. New research from Basic Income Earth Network has evaluated 3 options for improving income security in the UK for the coming year, pitting existing welfare against an increased child benefit against a revenue-neutral basic income. As always, basic income was found to be the most successful at increasing income security and access and reducing poverty and inequality. I don't have time to read the details of the study or check their methodology, and it's fair to be skeptical of the conclusion given the organization, but it is in the links if anyone wants to vet it for us. I'm happy to announce that one of our own, Sheridan Lund, a regular of the YangGang Roundtable panel, has announced his candidacy for Congress. He'll be repping the gang in the 2022 run for U.S. Congress from New Mexico's 1st District. To get to know him, you can check out the roundtable interview and his website in the links. In the bit of the interview that I caught, he had some good positions on more hands-on practical schooling, mentioned the American scorecard, and proposed a UBI that goes as high as productive capacity of the economy will allow, so I'm liking what I'm hearing. Check him out and consider supporting. UBI Lab's LGBTQ+ branch will be hosting their first event, an informal roundtable exploring how a UBI could help the LGBTQ+ community, on February 28th. Anyone can start up a new UBI lab either for a geographic area or a demographic group at their website, which is in the links below. Get your city, state, or people represented. Yang spent an hour thanking donors, which you can watch at the link below. Nothing too interesting in the bit I watched, but it's there if you want it. And finally, if you haven't heard the interview of Guy Standing by Doctor's Kitchen before, you're missing out. He does an excellent job explaining UBI, welfare, exploitation, and more. Some very moving examples of UBI giving people a freedom they've never known, particularly women in abusive relationships. It's well worth a listen. Link below. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Advise the people in your life of the mask mandate. Check out and share Lund's run for Congress. Bookmark and share the UBI study and Guy Standing's interview. Flood Congress with calls, tweets, faxes, and letters using the Resist bot or Income Movement Easy Contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way, and don't forget to Yang Daily.